the Navi speaks about Ahavas Chesed, loving kindness. You should love Chesed. He says, why? A person who does something only because it's the right thing to do, but he doesn't have a natural attraction to it. He doesn't seek it out. Very often, there are opportunities which present themselves, and because he's not focused on that particular area to address, he just glosses over it. I'll give you an example. A person who's bent on financial success, any deal that presents itself, he doesn't miss a beat. He doesn't miss that deal. And he's going to do his due diligence to see if that deal is the deal that he's looking for. Why? Because he wants to succeed to that degree, and he's totally consumed with the concept to succeed. A person who has love for kindness, that means Hashem presents many opportunities in our lives. Unfortunately, many of them we just gloss over. We don't recognize them. But if you have Ahavas Chesed, if you have love, you love Chesed, you're going to notice them when they present themselves, which other people don't notice. That's firstly. Secondly, anything that you value to that degree, you're going to want to share it with others. If you value something greatly, you talk about it. And you meet people, whether they're friends or peer group, and because you value it to such a degree, you want to support it and perpetuate it. So you'll be a source of influence to other people that they should actually begin appreciating what you understand. So the Ahavas Chesed, loving kindness, it's not only in terms of being able to recognize opportunity, but because you love it and you feel it's essential, you will encourage others to do similar to what you're doing yourself. That's the Chofetz Chaim's point. Then yesterday we left off. We had spoken about to be mevater, to look away. Nothing's perfect. If you want to find fault, there's nothing you can't find fault with. The only thing you can't find fault with is with the Torah, because the Torah is perfect. But with people, you could find fault. Nobody's perfect. And I always quote Rabbi Wein, she live and be well. He says, don't mix up Jews with Judaism. Judaism is perfect. Jews are not perfect. So the takeaway from Jews should not be a reflection of what Judaism is. People don't hone up to what they should be. Therefore, they should not be a reflection on what Judaism is. God's Torah is perfect. God is perfect. You may not understand why God acts in a certain way, but that's only because you don't understand. But human beings, the times you can't give a person the benefit of the doubt, because based on circumstances, he doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, because people are far from perfect. As a result of that, Chesed is, although I know you're not perfect, and although you don't deserve to be forgiven, I will forgive you. I will do Chesed. I will help you, even though you shouldn't have made that mistake. You've made the mistake before. It's interesting. The law is that if a poor man comes to you for charity and he's truly needy, you should help him. What about if he comes back to you a second time and a third time and nothing has changed and you're able to help him, you should help him. We're not talking about to what degree you should help him, but you should help him because he's in need. A person can say, something, I've had enough. I've had enough. Why don't you go to someone else that he should help you out? I've helped you in the past. What about if a person would understand the value of a special investment and a person comes back to you with one opportunity? You invest, and he's come back for the 10th time, and all first 9 times you succeeded tremendously on the investment. Are you going to tell the person, don't come back to me? I've made enough. I've succeeded enough. If you appreciate what it means to succeed, and the 10th time is even better than the first 9 times, then of course you can invest the 10th time. When you do Chesed, if a person is truly a needy person, and everything in life are challenges, we all have short fuses, as they say. we have only so much patience, so much tolerance. But despite the lack of tolerance, we're able to overcome that and see the person that's being truly needy. You're going to help him. But every time you help him, the value of that help is no less than an investment. The return you're going to have on that, of course, even though naturally maybe you have a right to say enough, but if you don't say enough, then God says, when it comes to, I won't say enough either. Because everything in life is measure for measure. As you dole it out, that's the way God doles it out to you. Same idea. So if a person has Ahavas Chesed, you truly love Chesed, the person come back the 15th time. But I'm doing something which it's my so to call, it's my cup of tea. But what about? But if you understood the value of Chesed, then you're not going to say, what about? There's a book I once suggested, I think Larry read it, All for the Boss. This person's name was Yosef Herman. And he moved to Israel when he really was much older. And he lived in the old neighborhood in Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. And he was a person who did tremendous hospitality. And the people who sat at his table were usually unfortunates. People didn't have homes themselves. People weren't fully stable, not fully stable. And he would invite all these poor people. They would sit around this table. He was a man of means. A man of means used to want to have people similar to himself. His peer group, no. The unfortunate sat at his table. People weren't necessarily 100% stable, many of them. And they sat, and he prepared a large pot of cholent. Stories in the book. And it had meat in it. And in those days, meat was a rare commodity in Yerushalayim. Meat was very expensive. And these poor people coming to eat. And one of these people there is not 100% stable. And he goes and they have this large chafing dish they put on the table. And one of these people goes and spits into the chafing dish. Hear this. When the other poor people see this, they go berserk. After this person spits into this chafing dish, this person runs for his life because he realizes all these other people, they're going to chase him down the street. And they chase him down the street. If you're the host and you see such a thing, what would you say? Never again. This person will never come to my house again. I would never invite him again. And would you calm the other people? Say they have a right to chase him. He tried to prevent it. He says, I have other food. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. The man, unfortunately, is not a well person. Rather than getting upset, and there's a story there, when he first came to Shalayim, this was in the late 40s, he bought himself a new kaftan. First time he was ever wearing it. And he has the cholent being served at the Shabbos table. One of these people pick up his plate, throw it at him. At the host, he's wearing a brand new, first time he's ever worn this new frock, this kaftan. What do you think he does? Doesn't flinch. He says, it's okay. Wipes it off, sits down, gets himself another one, an older one, puts it on. That was his level. You understand? If it's Ahavas Chesed, if that's the level of you understand the value of Chesed, it's okay. You're going to a diamond mine. You're wearing a new kaftan, but you're mining 100,000 deflorous diamonds. Are you concerned your kaftan is getting dusty or getting dirty? If you understand what you're mining, it's okay. That's Ahavas Chesed. A person who truly loves Chesed, you understand its value. You understand its value, you're not in any way discouraged from doing more of it. That's Chofetz Chaim. Firstly, there's no opportunity you're going to miss. And in addition, you're going to encourage other people to do more of the same because of your position on that. So now he had said, well, we left off yesterday, that after 120 years, a person goes before the heavenly court and is judged. And we'd said, how is the evaluation done? Whether the person's tzaddik or Rasha. If the majority of your actions are positive, you're tzaddik. If the majority negative, the person is classified as something other than that, which is not good. Let's say a person in his life is so exacting with his fellow. I give you what you deserve, nothing more. And the person is not willing to look away. He's not willing to be flexible. He's not willing to go the extra mile for someone else. God says, if you don't go the extra mile for someone else, I don't go the extra mile for you either. That you deal with a person as he deals with others. As a result of that, but what about a person does? Despite the fact that he doesn't have to seek out a person who's in need, and he seeks him out. He doesn't have to give a person the position, the job, and he pays him a little more to give him that sense of value, which he doesn't have to do. But he's doing an act of kindness, that the person should feel that he's somebody, he has some level of worth, that he's able to support his family. God says, as you went out of your way and went the extra mile for him, I will go the extra mile for you. And although your record's not perfect, it's flawed, it's deficient, doesn't make a difference. I'll take it face value, and you get full credit for it. So therefore, the value of doing what we're doing now, behaving in this world, but that's only in this world. In this world, we could talk about scoring points. But if a person in this world didn't behave in that manner, what happens when you arrive in the world to come? God deals with you as you dealt with others in this world. You were exacting with your fellow, God will be exacting with you. He'll put it on that scale. He measures exactly qualitatively. It's a qualitative scale. If God puts it on that qualitative scale, most people have a problem. Because who does things perfectly? You have to be that very special person to be able to meet that grade of perfection. The average person, we're distracted, we're not learned, we're not at that level to infuse it with love, with reverence, any of that. But a person himself, he's giving and willing to compromise himself for others and puts himself out for others. God said, if that's the case, as you don't look at the other person as he is, and you go beyond what he deserves, God will give you beyond what you deserve. That's measure for measure, and that's justice. Justice is the way you treat others, that's the way God treats you. That's the understanding. So what I said yesterday is something interesting. Hillel had told that convert, what is one principle that everything, the whole Torah is based upon? What you dislike, what you hate, don't do to your fellow. It's another way of saying, love your fellow as you love yourself. That's what it is. Love you, but it's more than that. It brings out a different point. What you don't want to be done to you, don't do unto your fellow. You don't want to be graded exactly as who you are. You don't want to be graded as that. You want a little leeway. You want some slack. You want slack, not flack, right? That's what you want. That's what you want. If you give slack to the other person, you have that flexibility with that. Hashem will give you that flexibility. So therefore, it's terrific. Even the part of the Torah which is between man and God, observance of Shabbos, laws of dietary laws, or other laws. If you treat your fellow in this manner, don't do unto anything you don't dislike, don't do unto your fellow. What does that mean? But we always look at our fellow differently, we look at ourselves. But what is the litmus test? Don't do unto him what you don't want to be unto yourself. Automatically, what are you doing? You're willing to look away. Just as you want other people to look away for you, you look away for others. Automatically, the Torah's entirety, even at parts of the Torah which have no relevance to man and man, God will evaluate your record in a way God's also going to look away. He's not going to give it that microscope type of evaluation. If that's the case, you're in a better place. That is the main principle. That's the principle of Torah. There's a person I'm very close with. He lives in Israel. He's 8th generation Israel. His mother is the 7th generation from the Balatanya, this person. And he raises money to support throughout the year, especially when it comes to holidays, thousands of families. His father started the organization. His father was a businessman, and this person is not supported from this. Doesn't take any salary, nothing. It's all done purely for the sake of Chesed. It's called Chasde Yosef. His father's name was Yosef, so the organization is called the Chasde Yosef, the Chesed of Yosef, his father. That's the name of the organization. So his father taught him from the time he was a child. Somebody knocks at your door at 2:00 in the morning. He needs financial help. So he'd say, you know something, come back tomorrow. You think to yourself, where does he have the audacity to knock on my door 2 a.m. or to ring my phone at 12:30 at night? Where does he have the right to infringe on my life, create such impositions? So his father taught him all this when he was a child, and he saw his father behaving this way. He says, put yourself in the other man's place. If you'd be on the other side of the door, and you have a problem, and you don't have what to eat, and you can't provide for your family, would you want the door to be open for you? And if you put yourself in the other person's place, then you're going to open the door. If you say yourself, you and him, it's an imposition. It's an infringement on my life. But if you put yourself in the other man's shoes, and you're on the other side of the door, and you need the assistance and help, then you're going to put it in a different light. That's what he taught, and that's his rule of thumb. The way he deals with people, he's pained that people don't have, and the times where he doesn't have enough to provide for everyone. And he doesn't leave a stone unturned till he helps these people. And many of these people, they don't say thank you. There's no thank you. Because many of them are so needy, all they see is their need. It doesn't deter him from doing more of the same. Because he knows what he's doing the right thing. So it even increases his value in the eyes of Hashem, that despite that these people don't even have appreciation what you do for them. So what does that say? You're willing to look away, even to that degree where definitely you should be turned off. Hashem definitely will evaluate your record in a way which is going to be unbelievable, even though it's flawed to the nth degree, because as you looked away, to the degree that you did look away, Hashem will look away when he evaluates your record. That's the concept. What about if a person's a miserly son of a gun, what they call? Guy, they deliver non-kosher wine to his house in the summer. Third wine cellar, 3-story subterranean. And the guy's so miserly, he doesn't want to tip the guy. So the only reason why I tipped him, because he understood his funeral will cost more than that tip. So therefore, financially, it was advantageous to give him the tip. Good, Larry.
Yes, Rabbi. So, Rabbi, I'm curious about the concept of measure for measure, which I understand on a spiritual level. Well, I'm learning it from you on a spiritual level, and it's very moving. But between people, if someone does ill by you, by someone, do they go out of their way to look to do ill? Not go out of their way, but be unresponsive and throw up to them, you didn't do right by me, so ergo.
Let me explain it. Good question. There are 2 negative commandments in the Torah. Lo sikom v'lo sitor. You're not permitted to take revenge, and you're not permitted to harbor ill feeling to the other person. What are the examples? And the Talmud gives 2 examples. I come to you and say, could I borrow your shovel? And I say, no. Next day I come to you, I said, could I borrow your plow? The one who turned down the other comes to the person we turned down, he says, no, you didn't lend me your shovel, I'm not lending you my plow. That's revenge. We're talking about just because he didn't give you have no right to take revenge and not do the act of kind. We're not talking about the person who put your plow in jeopardy. But if you could do it, you should do it. And if the reason why you don't is because he didn't do for you, you're in violation of negative commandment. What about this? The person turns him down, and next day he goes to him and says, can I borrow your plow? He says, you know something? I'll lend you my plow. Even though you don't lend me your shovel, I will lend you my plow. That he verbalizes it, that means he's harboring still ill feeling against the other person, for turning him down and not giving him the shovel. But nevertheless, I'm a better person than you are, I will give you the plow. You're in violation of negative commandment of harboring ill feeling in your heart. So what's the rationale? So the chinuch, who's a codifier, And not only is a codifier of the Torah, of the mitzvahs, of the commandments, he gives us a rational, philosophical background on why each mitzvah is what it is, a rational understanding. Why, if I withhold something for you because you didn't do for me, I don't do for you, why is that forbidden on Torah level? Now, person needs money alone, and a person goes to a person who could help him, and if he doesn't pay the bank, he's going to be dispossessed. He's going to be put on the street. That's what's going to happen. And he goes to the person, he says, I'm sorry, I can't give you the money. And he really could. Now this person is dispossessed. He suffers tremendously because this man denied him a favor which he could have provided that favor. You have no right to take revenge. Why? So the Chinuch explains, if God wanted you to receive that money and not experience that embarrassment or that complication in your life, be put out on the street, you don't think God would have provided the money? He would have provided it. God sent you to a person who's going to turn you down. Is the man a stingy, miserly person? The answer is yes. But to have a claim against him, you should have done for me, and you didn't. The reason why he didn't has nothing to do with the reason why you weren't a beneficiary of that kindness, because God didn't want you to be a beneficiary. Because God could have sent you to a person who would have been happily to give you the money. Or you would have made the money some other way that you could have paid the bank, the mortgage payment. So really, it's not the person. The reason why you're experiencing this negative experience, pain, embarrassment, whatever it is, because God wanted to. So by taking revenge, it's a denial of God's providence in your life that God is the one who caused it. You're blaming the wrong person. It's not the person, it's God. Harboring ill feeling. Why did he turn you down? And not give you a shovel? He said, well, I'll give, even though you didn't give it to me, I'll give it to you. I'm a better man than you are. But why did he give it to you? Because God didn't want him to give it to you. God didn't want you to be a beneficiary of the request that you had made. It's unrelated to the person. Because if God wanted you to receive it, he would have sent you elsewhere and you would have had it. That's the rationale. Okay? And he gives the example. You're walking down the street and you trip on a tree root and you twist your ankle. Now, and you were very careful how you walked. Who do you blame? We're talking about believing. Who do you blame? Evidently, God wanted that I should incur this injury or this pain. Who are you going to? There's nobody to blame. You say it's an act of God. A person is driving and he gets involved in a fender bender, and the person who crashes in couldn't help it. It was a pileup. Nobody could avoid it. You were upset. Who are you upset with? Can't upset with the person that crashed into you, because he himself was also a victim from the one behind him. It was a chain reaction. Who do you blame? Evidently, it was meant to be. He should be involved in this car crash and this fender bender. Now he has to spend time, go to the collision shop, be involved with the insurance company. You know something? That your life became complicated because God wants you to life to become complicated. There's nobody to blame. You want to blame God, but it's God. It has nothing to do with the person. This is how the Chinuch explains why you're not permitted to harbor ill feeling or take revenge against another person. We're going to see later in the Chofetz Chaim, a person has an obligation to lend money. A positive commandment. If you could give a person a loan and it's going to be collateralized, and it's not a question where your money will be in jeopardy, that you're not going to be paid back, and you can do it, you should do it. Let's say you go to a person, he doesn't lend you. He doesn't lend you. So what happens? You're upset. Okay? Now that person comes to you, asks you to borrow money. And you could lend them. And you don't say a word, and you lend them money. But normally, when you would have lent him, if this previous incident didn't take place, you would lend him with warmth, with a smile. Now, you have like a very stern look when you give him the money. You're ready, displaying some level of discomfort that you're forcing yourself to do this. And it's only because the man denied you. You're in violation of taking revenge. This is the Chofetz Chaim. What about, man asks you $1,000? You give him 1,000. He said, unfortunately, I can only give you 750. And the reason why you're giving him less is because he didn't give you in the past, but he doesn't know the difference. And you do it with a smile, you do it with warmth. But factually speaking, you're withholding the full amount is because he didn't do for you. You don't say a word, you're in violation of taking revenge. Because the only reason why you're not giving the full amount, which you could, is because what he had denied you earlier. You're in violation of negative commandment. These are applications of this, which the Chofetz Chaim in this work, which we'll eventually get there, he discusses to that degree. Because you really understand why you didn't have it, it has nothing to do with the lender. Because God didn't want you to have it. So who are you going to blame? You have nobody to blame. You want to blame God, but it's not this person. Is he a bad guy? He's a bad guy. Nobody's not denying that. He is a withholding person. He's a miserly person. But that has nothing to do with you. Because if you were meant to have it, God would have provided you should have it. I'll tell you an interesting story. There's a person, he came, years ago, I'm talking about in the 50s. This person came to Baltimore, to the yeshiva I studied in. He was about 10 years old than I was. Came from Richmond, Virginia. Came to Richmond, Virginia, maybe in 1954. I came to the yeshiva in 62. Maybe he was less than 10 years old than I was. And he spoke with a real, like a Southern accent. Came from Virginia. Spoke a little bit like a hick. Compared to a New Yorker, he spoke like a hick. And, okay. And he came from a very ordinary family. Very ordinary. His father was an observant man, but very ordinary. Not learned at all. And he comes and he studies and he succeeds in his studies and everything else. And his dream now is he marries. And him and his wife, his dream is he wants to go to Jewish education. And he wants to be a teacher, an elementary school teacher. Teach Hebrew subjects in elementary school. And there's a school in Baltimore, it's called Baltimore Talmudical Academy. It's called BTA. And he applied for the position, third grade teacher, fourth grade teacher, whatever it was. And he wanted to do, it's a mitzvah. Teach Jewish children Torah. What happens? Somebody goes, and he really was pressed. He needed a salary because he was living on a stipend, and the stipend wasn't enough. He already had 2 children, and he applies for the position, and somebody else, it's not 2 people applied, and somebody else was chosen over him. It was finagled away from him, and that's why he didn't get the position. Really, he should have gotten the position, because the other person finagled, therefore he didn't get the position. He was very upset at this person. He was upset at the administration because they allowed it to happen, because now he's without a job, and he needs the money. So what happens? What push comes to shove, what do? You have no choice. So he went, and his father had some money, and he borrowed money from his father. And he figured he'll study 3/4 of a day, a quarter of a day, he'll try to earn a livelihood. So what did he do? He purchased a cottage. And those days you could buy a cottage in Baltimore for $5,000. And what did he do? And he fixed it up, refurbished it, and sold it for $10,000. And he went into business. And gradually he became very successful. In 1972, this man was worth $40 million. He became a major real estate owner. Hear this? So he said to me, I had a relationship with him. He says, I want to explain you something. Every day that I did not get that job in TA, the elementary school teacher, I say, Shechianu, every day that I did not get the job. Initially, I was pained. I was finagled out of the job. I was upset. Today, I say, Shechianu. When good fortune happens to you, you say, Shechianu. Looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to him in his life. Today, he studies. He's a philanthropist. He has a special family. He supports his married children. It's a whole different world. So how does God? So why do things happen? Yes or no? He did his best. He was finagled. The guy, personal finagle, that did the wrong thing. But why were you the victim? Because God didn't want you to have that job. Why didn't he want you to have a job? That you resort to another means of livelihood. Eventually, he turned out to be a wealthy man, to become a supporter, to become a philanthropist, to support Torah, to support families. This person, every Aser Samei Tshuva, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, although he's Bisman, he didn't go to work. He spent a whole day in the yeshiva as a kollel person, studying all day. And not only that, whatever the budget for that 10-day period was, he underwrote the whole budget, the whole kollel. He would pay the stipend for everybody to be able to study. You understand? If he would have been the teacher, at best, maybe he could have afforded to buy clothing for his family for Yom Tov. Nothing more than that. So we talk about lo sikam lo sitor. Don't harbor ill feeling, don't take revenge. But when you go against the grain and you don't allow that to affect you, and you look away and you do the right thing because it is the right thing, God looks away and he gives you an evaluation. Although you don't deserve it, he'll treat you as if you do deserve it, and you're classified in that special way. A story a few years ago, this person was a wealthy man, and he got endless invitations to weddings. And, at one time, when I grew up, how often was there a wedding? People had small families, 2, 3 children, and it was after the war. So every once in a while, there'd be a wedding. So a wedding was a big occasion, something to go to. Today, thank God, the Jewish community has increased. You can get 5 invitations. We have 5 weddings in a week to go to. That's the reason why the caterers are doing so well, right? Larry knows that. That's why he always says endless supply of sweetbreads whenever he wants it. Weddings every night. Okay. So what happened? So this man, he never went to anybody's wedding because he felt it's an imposition. Finally, he's marrying off his own child. You hear this? 5-piece band, flowers, works. You know what happens? Nobody shows up to his wedding. You know something? If you're not man enough to value anybody else's joy, and therefore you don't go to their wedding, why should we go to your wedding? I'm not saying it was right. The man had a taste of his own medicine. You don't celebrate others, why should we celebrate yours? You don't value us. You don't value us, we don't value you. So he got a piece of his own medicine. Don't worry, once he understood that, then already it was a life changer for him. Because he was pained. He didn't even realize his behavior, what it was causing. That this was the way people reacted. So as much as you brought up not knowing what it means, not to have or not to give, but factually, God forbid a person falls on hard times and you have to come with your hat in your hand to ask for something, and a person doesn't open the door for you, how do you feel? And you think to yourself, how many times didn't I open the door? So do I have a claim against anybody? That I'm being treated the way I treated others. And you don't want to be put there. You don't want to have a taste of that you should fall on hard times. So if you're smart, despite your conditioning, not to open the door, knowing the right thing, something, open the door. Because if you'd be on the other side of that door, you would want the door to be open for you. That's the understanding. In life, what motivates people? Inspiration. If you're touched and inspired, that motivates you. That's why if you have special role models, even though you brought up a certain way, but if you have a special role model and that role model touches you in a certain way, it creates an inspiration. Once you're inspired, you'll do. What about the past? Past has nothing to do with the present because you're inspired. And if you meet that special person who touches you and does things in an exceptional way, you see, something you say, it's unbelievable. I'm almost embarrassed to behave who I am when I see what this person is. And therefore, you start changing gradually. And if you see enough of it, You change altogether, and the past has no relevance to the present and the future. That's the way it's done. But if you're cloistered in your house and you're not aware of what's going on in the world, that's a little bit of a problem.